Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the Season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian, Chapter 17, The Apostate. And I really enjoyed this episode. I really thought it did a good job of setting us up back into the world of The Mandalorian and where he is at this point. Strangely enough, one of the strengths, I believe, of this episode is, even if you had missed the things that had went along with, like, the Book of Boba Fett, which was in and of itself pretty much just setting up stuff, like the last 3 episodes for Din Djarin and Grogu and kind of everything that came along, they do enough to explain it so that way you don't have to watch it. Now granted, that stuff is value add, and I would actually argue pretty important to seeing what Din and Grogu had to go through, and having some really good stuff with, like, Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano. But we will kind of, like, if you're into it, cool. If you just want to stick with the Mandalorian episodes, you're good with this. But I really enjoyed the stuff that they put in with the Book of Boba Fett. So, if you are coming in, you're like, how the hell is the little dude back with Din? Where'd they get this new ship? You'd have to go and watch those. But we start off and we see the armor crafting something, and we're like, what the hell's kind of going on? Working some Beskar and everything, and we find out that she's making a helmet for a foundling as they're going through the initiation rituals for them to become a Mandalorian, according to the Watch. And it's interesting because water seems to have a big kind of part to play as well in this, because we had learned that since Din had removed his helmet at Season 2 to say goodbye to Grogu, that puts him in the Apostate category, and the only way for him to get through his transgressions of taking off his helmet is to bathe in the living waters in the mines of Mandalore. And seeing that water also plays that kind of effect with the Watch and the initiation, as we see her presenting the helmet, the child reciting the lines back, putting it back on before, well, the ceremony is interrupted. We see other kind of small foundlings running away as the rest of the Mandalorians group together to fight off this aquatic creature that comes off. And this is a very well done and executed CGI that's going on. You don't really feel out of place, and the characters seem to be interacting with this giant kind of fucking almost turtle alligator fucking thing as they're fighting off using different kind of things, trying to drag it down. It's really kind of cool to see the back and forth and the push and pull. This episode is only like 37 minutes, but a lot of it doesn't really drag that much. And we see them fighting, we see the armor trying to help out some other ones, succeeding in certain instances and almost getting killed. But then we see Din come in his retrofitted Naboo starfighter with Grogu in tow as they blast through it and come in. Now, of course, since he's an apostate, they don't really want to talk to him, but he comes up to the armor, they meet, and she's like, you're not a Mandalorian, you gotta go do your shit. And even though he technically can't do that because of the destruction of Mandalore, however, he comes and he had evidently gotten through some kind of trading means. He's like, I think this is Mandalorian writing, and it's like in this crystal and everything, and he's like, well, this shows that certain things, like people can go on to Mandalore, they can survive, because it's like poisoned glass because of all the bombing and everything. But we also see Grogu acting all cute and everything, and I can understand why some people would be kind of like annoyed at the cuteness that Grogu does, but he's a child, he's a baby, he's doing all these kind of things and still kind of learning and everything, and it's just endearing to me. I can understand how people can be annoyed. It's like, it's 3 seasons in, it's like, yeah, but he's like 50 years old and was like screwing around during the Jedi Purge and everything, like, he's acting like a kid. I'm alright with it. It helps to provide levity in certain kind of serious situations, and that is a hard thing to do. The balancing of tone, where you've got this serious situation, the Mandalore is trying to get rid of his apostate status and become a Mandalorian again. And we are provided other means and other ways that Din could potentially go if he feels that the way of the Mandalore is not his chosen route anymore. Because we had seen that Grogu, when given the choice between being a Jedi and going with Din, he chooses Din, because he's got the little shirt on and everything. But the armor's like, go ahead, try it if you must. He's like, alright. So he goes off, he's trying to think of what he needs to do there in hyperspace, and we see the space whales in the hyperspace thing. Grogu's looking at him like, what the hell? Kind of gets a little bit freaked out and goes down and cuddles with Din as he's kind of sleeping on their route, and we're like, okay, where's he going to be going next? And we see that he goes to Navarro. And now, granted, I don't know much about the space whales. I know that they factor in heavily with Rebels and like time shit and everything, so it's interesting to see them brought back into this, and also kind of working around in the hyperspace lanes and like being near Grogu. We'll have to see how that kind of pans out and if that links up with any kind of stuff from Rebels. So they get to Navarro, and it's a vastly kind of changed place. Greef Karga is now the High Magistrate, and he will let you know that he is the High Magistrate, and it looks really nice. We got this like droid kind of giving us the info and everything, and they're like, it's trying to be a premier kind of trade hub. He's pushing for it to be independent and to not be sucked into like the bureaucracy of the New Republic, and he's really happy with what he's been able to do, and it looks really nice. There's a lot of different buildings. You see a lot of people going around doing trades, children running around and playing and everything. There's even a statue to IG-11 who got blown up and everything and melted with the kind of lava thing that happened in the first season. And he's like, hey, come to my office. And pretty much talking, we get Grogu doing a kind of funny thing where he's spinning around in the chair, getting some snacks and everything like that with the Force, showing that, yes, I can get like, oh, that's kind of annoying, but it's also showing his mastery of his powers of the Force, and yet also his inability to figure out when he should be using his powers versus when he shouldn't be using his powers. Because Din lets him do it for a little bit, and it's like, okay, you can stop that now. And Greef is like, hey, just come stay here. You can be landed gentry. It's another kind of path. Din pretty much gives him the lowdown, like, he's like, why are you going around with this little creature? And it's funny, he keeps telling everybody his name is Grogu, and it's like, yes, thank you, tell them his name. And being like, yeah, I returned him to his people, but he chose to return to me. And it's such a concise kind of explanation. It's like, yeah, that's how you do it. And Greef giving him this kind of like, hey, you could be landed gentry, you and the kid could just lay down, you could live off the fat of the land and everything. And he's like, no, I kind of want to do this. I kind of want to do my quest, setting up this whole thing of him getting back into the Mandalorian way, dealing stuff with the Darksaber, and all that kind of stuff that entails. I like this. I like that they're giving him other options as well. The best kind of way is not to force a kind of quest, but you have the beginnings of a quest, and then the adventurer must have other options. It's otherwise you kind of lose a little bit of the tension in that kind of story, because then it's like, okay, he's got this quest, he's got this quest, he's got this step to do, this step to do, this step to do. That's all nice and well and good, but here he's like, he has to actively continue this quest. He has to choose to do it. And we see him continuing to make that choice. But I do like these options, because then we have Greef having to deal with these pirates. And they're like, hey, can you let us drink here? It's like, that's my school now, man. He's like, oh, that's really fucking inconvenient. I want to drink here. And he's just not letting it go. And Greef is doing his best. He's like, it's a school now. Leave it alone. And then he's like, no. And he's like, oh, it sounds like you've gone soft. He's like, you want to test me? And I love it. He's in High Magistrate mode, but he's also in the fucking Outer Rim of Star Wars, man. Pulls back. He's got his blaster and everything. And then you got the tension. You see the Mando just standing back being like, alright, I'll let this play out. I'll see how this works. Greef shoots the blaster out of his hand, but then the Mando kind of knows that the other group, like the other kind of cadre that he's got around him, could spill out. And it's funny because then he goes into like Western cowboy mode, and then him and Greef just take out the rest of them because they were going to go for their shit. And they leave the one alive to kind of go and tell the rest, you know, don't mess with this. Let me see here. Let's see if I can... Do we have a name for him? don't remember his name off the top of the head, and they don't kind of have it in that one spot, but he's like, curses kind of shit as he like goes off. And the thing is, Grief then brings up, you know what, I really need a marshal, saying that Cara Dune got sucked into like a special forces kind of thing. And that's kind of probably for the best of dealing with how the actress for Cara Dune was fired and let go from the series. So, well, that's probably the best kind of route that they could have gone with dealing with Cara's character at this point. But he's like, hey, I need a marshal. Would you do it? And Mando's like, I kind of have my quest. I want to do my thing to be my Mando self. And he's got all this kind of stuff. He could be the landed gentry of Navarro. He could be the marshal and keep peace, which is an honorable, noble quest. But he's like, I kind of want to do this, and I want IG-11 to kind of help me. He's like, you sure about that? And it's like, that's about all the parts that we could pretty much, get from IG-11. And it's like, all right, let's kind of see. And they kind of work with him. But then he gets back up put together, and he's got his original programming, and he's trying to kill Grogu. And that was a kind of tense situation. There's like, Din is shooting at him, Grief is like protecting Grogu, and then his one droid accidentally knocks over a bust of him, and it busts in IG-11's head. It's like, all right, let's see if we can figure out another kind of way to kind of fix this. And we then go to the Anzellans, which are like the Babu Freak kind of people, and they're trying to look, it's like, we can't fix this kind of thing. And Grief is trying to like translate for him, and Din's like, yeah, I kind of get it. And it's funny. I can understand why people wouldn't find this funny, but my kind of thing is like, it's all predicated on how Din kind of handles the situation. I.e., he's like, he understands Grief's trying to help, but he's like, yeah, I kind of got what they're saying, and they then need this certain memory circuit. And he's like, all right, if I find this memory circuit, you can fix him, right? Because he needs the droid to help him kind of get through and understand kind of how safe Mandalore is and all that. It's like, ooh, okay, cool. He's got his steps. He's got his kind of choices that he's making. We got the tension of like, he can have a normal life, but this is what he's choosing. This is what he wants to do. Cool. That's where we're going for. And he's like, all right, I'll do that. I'll ship out and kind of try and look out for that kind of stuff. So he pops up and he's flying around, and Grief kind of course says goodbye, and they get beset upon the pirates. This time we get a nice space dog battle where the one last standing gets like 5 other helpers, and we see Din pretty much just pick them off one by one until we get left with the asshole, and then his captain's like, yeah, power down, asshole, mate, and we'll let you live. And it's funny because a little bit in the beginning, Din is teaching Grogu how to be a Mandalorian and be like, yes, you got to understand where you're going, look at your hyperspace routes, understand where you can navigate and everything, and also, at the end of this, to never trust a pirate as he pretty much pushes his boost button and escapes. It's like, yeah, all right, nice mixture of action, character development, character understanding, and plot movement. And then we see that he is gone and that they are now going off towards this other planet in the Mandalorian system and looking at a Mandalorian castle. And we see that him and Grogu get off, and they walk towards Bo-Katan to ask her if she wants to help out and take Mandalore. But of course, she's despondent. All of the people that were following her and the pretty much stolen fleet are gone because she does not wield the Darksaber. And that's a big important thing. It is very important to Mandalorian culture. And the thing is, she's like kind of like hitting on him with like the cult ways and everything like that, and the superstition, and how Mandalore is probably poisoned or whatnot, but that he's going to go and do it anyway. And asked if she wanted to come, and she's like, nah, you can just go and find the fleet and pretty much wave the Darksaber around and you get those people if you want. But it's interesting to see Bo-Katan so despondent with this. Like, I really understand and feel for her because she wants to be this pivotal figure, and this is her kind of dream of like reuniting Mandalore, bringing the people back to Mandalore, and restarting her civilization. But yet she did not win the Darksaber in combat. She could theoretically fight Din for it, or take it from him, or ask he could like give it to her, but he needs it. The combat is an important part of it, and Din has to be the one to do that. And I think he needs to come to the realization of that and understand what that means and what that responsibility would potentially entail. Because that could put him into a kind of conflict of interest of like, will he do this and try and reunite Mandalore? Or if Grogu is in trouble, will he throw that all away? Will he take a defeat and lose the Darksaber to someone who is probably unworthy of wielding the Darksaber to reunite, and unworthy to reunite Mandalore, and leave that to protect Grogu, his son, for all intents and purposes? There's a lot of things that could happen. And he's like, alright, cool. And he just leaves Bo-Katan, and that's kind of where the episode ends. And, like, she suggests that he, like, travels there alone. So, this is the big kind of setup that we have now. We have his goal to bathe in the living waters of Mandalore, which is an interesting kind of phrase. I wonder what it means of the living waters. Is there some kind of movement? Usually water in mines, depending upon where you're at, would be more of a pool or whatnot. What kind of stuff would this living water do? You don't call it living water for no reason. Like, there's a mystique to it, of course, because of the religious significance that it pertains to with the Mandalorian members of the Watch. And it's just, I felt that it set it up very well. It got us to where our characters are, what their goals are, their motivations, and where we want to kind of see it next. It's like, alright, cool. What's going to happen now? What else is Din going to teach Grogu about the Mandalorian ways? Will he train him to do different kind of things? Will he look for other kind of, like, the main quest at the moment is to get back into the way of the Mandalore. We have 8 episodes, so we've got 7 episodes left. We'll have to see where that kind of goes and what they will be able to do with it. Are we going to have to wait until the end of the season to see if Din does this? Will he do it by the midpoint and see the repercussions of him going beyond that to see if maybe he then gathers the Mandalorians, gathers the armor, tries to then go, since he has now shown that Mandalore is now alive or in a better kind of state, would he then take his people back there? Would he get other Beskar armor for Grogu, and what that would entail? Now, granted, he would only get to a certain kind of size, but would we eventually see him with his own armor and a different kind of fighting style that would augment with the Force? Are we setting up that potentially Din would take over as the head of the Mandalorians, and that we are now seeing a fusion of Jedi and Mando with Grogu, and what that could entail? That would be fucking awesome to see. Like, yeah, we didn't have any mention of Grogu in the sequel trilogy, and then BAM! That's because we got a Mando little bugger who's going to show you how he does it. And what that would entail. I mean, trying to see him, like, utilize the Darksaber would be crazy. But there's a lot of interesting story possibilities that could just pop up out of nowhere. And that's, I think, a very good strength of this show. Yes, it's connected to Star Wars, and it is connected enough to the sequel trilogy, but there's a lot of stuff that they could do and that we could see later on of great kind of story and character potentials, which is all what Star Wars is about. We've got this crazy world that's this crazy universe that's got awesome high-tech things in certain places and dirty, dingy, grungy kind of things. We've got space wizards doing space wizard things. We've got people with Beskar armor and jetpacks and flamethrowers going around like space cowboys and shit. When you can get that, and you can get that imagination going and that thought processes and be like, that's the strength, and I can't wait to see where this season will go next. So, those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.